Welcome to Live from HCIC 2023, a podcast series bringing you front row insights from the industry's brightest minds. In this 12-part series, we delve into the heart of the trends impacting health systems with leading experts, senior executives, and thought leaders, as recorded live at the Healthcare Internet Conference in November of 2023. This series is brought to you by Greystone, Bowstring Media, and Touchpoint Media. Listen in as we hear from our industry leaders on the latest innovative strategies and efforts that are shaping our space. Hi, I'm here with Sujal Raju from Enqbator. Welcome, Sujal.
Yep.
It's been a great time.
Thank you so much for asking.
It's been the first time actually for me to sit. I'm excited.
I know, for a podcast, yes.
You know, before we jump in here, why don't we take a second for let people know who might be watching us or listening in.
Of course.
Tell them a little bit about yourself and Enqbator.
Yes, so I've been working in healthcare, especially with the HCIC conference for almost 25 years of 27 years. Started my journey at a large health system in Detroit, Michigan, working closely with their marketing team for all of their 11 hospitals. And then since then, I've started my own company and try to help doing the same things with websites, mobile apps, integration strategies. Our strength is more in technology. Mm-hmm. So we work with marketing teams to decipher the complexities and make it simpler for them to use the technology to their benefit.
A tech guy, which I love. It's right after my heart. I'm a tech guy. Have a really good conversation. Yeah. So this is going to be a lot of fun to have today to talk about. And today we're going to talk about something that is what I refer to as probably the most misunderstood, but the most hyped technology commonly going on today, and that's artificial intelligence or AI, right? Do you feel it's a little overhyped?
I do. And it's because it's been there for a long time, but it's been under the fold, if you say it, if you will. And then just with the release of the ChatGPT, it just come mainstream and blindsided many people as to okay, oh my God, what is it going to do? And there is a lot of, legitimate concerns. Mm-hmm. And, there are things that you can do to avoid that. But all of that has created a lot of commotion.
Yeah, absolutely. The ChatGPT and then Bard, there's this whole rush towards these open large language models that have a little bit of generative aspects to it.
Yes.
That allow us to, suddenly everybody has access to it. And now we're like, wow, this is going to take over our world and take over our jobs.
Yes.
So today we're going to put a little, damper on this hype.
Yes.
And really get into it.
Yes.
So let's first start.
That sounds great.
So let's first start with the fact that's something that you say, and I agree with too, is that it's been around for years.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So give us a brief history of AI.
So it goes all the way back up to 1960, and so this is prior to microprocessors becoming more mainstream, mm-hmm. and the fact that I'll take an example, even self-driving cars back in 1980, I believe Mercedes or I believe some German company did it first, and they had the car go in a lane, mm-hmm. And then, without a driver, drive it. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about 1980s. Mm-hmm. But then now Tesla, is the reason why, this all automation is happening more in mainstream, and all the car companies are following it, right?
Yeah.
So it just takes that one or two things to then, spike it back up.
Right.
And there's also a word called AI winter, mm-hmm. which means that, AI, especially this technology, adapts to get into mainstream, a lot of hype, lot of concerns, and then kind of nothing happens. No innovation happens for many years.
Right.
And then it comes back and so on and so forth. But it's been there, and we use it almost every day. Mm-hmm. Think about airlines, mm-hmm. If AI was not there, none of us would have been, be able to get these cheaper tickets, if you will, mm-hmm. or airline industry trying to figure out what's the best rate mm-hmm. that they should fix. What about the airlines, which planes to fly from where to where? So it's everywhere. We just don't see it.
Right. I also say, like in digital advertising, right? When you do work with Google AdWords.
Yes.
They optimize it. They use machine learning to kind of learn when you should optimize, when you should run your ads.
Exactly.
We've been doing this for years.
It's a win-win situation. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And CRM's another one, right? Propensity modeling. You hear the term propensity modeling.
Yeah.
That's all about really artificial intelligence. And it's been going on in healthcare for a while as well, yes, particularly around the clinical side, mm-hmm. clinical research. Right? Where they look at medical data, et cetera. Right. Pharmaceutical companies have been using AI for years, right? To do their product, to hone their products and development. Yeah. But now suddenly in conferences like this, the Healthcare Internet Conference, everybody's talking about it.
Yes.
And it's because we kind of jumped the shark with generative AI and large learning language models like ChatGPT and Bard and others, right? And so there's this whole kind of move towards there. All right. So I guess, one of the first things when we talk about these things is like, clearly it's hyped, but I think there's also a lot of fear around the technology. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, think about there is sensitivity in terms of someone's health, right? So if a child's health, is brought into the light, what are the things that you can market or cannot market? These are some sensitive things that government and other agencies had to put some guardrails and say, like, hey, these are the things that you have to stay within. You cannot promote this. You have HIPAA laws. These were made so that you protect the patient community, and then in general, like just privacy laws. So in AI, the same thing. These laws have to be made and enforced. Otherwise, what's going to happen is anyone can use any kind of data. Like if you are going outside, out the door into public, if everything turns around and someone is using all of that data around us, my voice, right, and any of that, it can really go wild and be used against someone. I joke around, but what if someone just spams someone, knowing who they are and they have their number, and just uses some voice sampling from that person, and now uses that voice sampling to create an entire speech in a negative way? There's so many issues that can happen with that. I mean, you can't imagine, security, there were certain banks who were using voice as a,
authentication.
Yeah. What about that? So there's many things that can go wrong. So that's why these guardrails have to be.
But at the same time, right, there's some really interesting things and applications around this. Because I think about, I'm a big Beatles fan.
Yeah.
The most recent song came out, right? They totally audio sampled John Lennon's voice.
Yes.
And they replicated. They're using AI, John Lennon's voice.
Yeah.
So that's there's some excitement around that because the technology's there.
Yes.
But there's also a lot of concern, particularly the ones that you mentioned around HIPAA and all that. And in our industry, we have to be very, very cautious of this, right? Yeah. It's like the technology's there. It could be used for good.
Yes.
And I think the other side of the fear around AI is that it's so good that it can actually take over what people do right now. Right?
It's a legitimate issue that we have to figure out, because a government agency or a bad host country could use that against another country which is not that capable and literally cause a lot of havoc in it.
Right.
It's, we live in one world. We've got to interact with each other. So it's just at a broader level, there could be so many things that could be wrong. We've seen the movie Terminator and seen what that could look like. But these are legitimate issues that can. I mean, the computers have become so fast, and the right technology with ChatGPT has come around that anyone can access AI and use that.
Right.
Even on your phone, you can run, these algorithms and create something great that 10 years ago was not possible unless you had this huge data center.
Right.
So that's the problem.
And that's the thing, right? This is why we're seeing this kind of advent of these ChatGPTs and other things, is because we now have the computing power.
Yes.
We now have the natural language processing capabilities behind it.
Right.
These voice recognition, large learning models, all of these come together, and suddenly this technology can advance so fast, right?
Yep. They're predicting like 35% increase in just 4 years.
Oh my goodness.
That's how fast it's going.
Right, right. Okay, so now that's kind of paints the dire picture, right? It's saying there's technology moves too fast. And we in healthcare, we tend to not move as fast as technology moves, right? So now let's kind of put our focus on, you're sitting in a health system.
Yeah.
Let's say you're a digital marketer, digital person working in IT, or even, like a communications and marketing professional.
Yeah.
You see the benefit, but you also see the risk. How do you weigh that? What do you do?
It's simple. What I feel is just look at, so there's quite a few examples where someone in the leadership just comes to a boardroom and says, I'm hearing a lot about AI. Our competitor is doing it. They're advertising it, and it's going out in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Right.
Just to say, right? So that's the wrong reason of why you should do AI, because what's going to end up is you're going to do something just because just using AI in something and not knowing how useful it is, first of all, and whether there's going to be any adverse effects by doing that. So the way I say is like, the technology is there and there's so many flavors of it. Like we were just talking earlier about like, generative AI versus just regular AI and stuff like that. There is so many things that you can do, because at the low level, it's all about providing the right data, putting a purpose to it, and then using the language model, and then now using that to do some end result, some automation, right? Whichever is best to automate, to save, it should be a win-win situation. Because the way this is going, the consumer is not going to like, if they come, like, if it is advertised, like, hey, this is using AI, like we have heard chatbots. Right. The moment that they know that, hey, it's a bot that they are chatting with, many of them abandon it.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they say operator. I want to talk to a live agent.
Exactly. Yeah. Right away they click on that.
Live agent.
Exactly. So it's like, do a win-win situation where everyone understands. I take an example of Netflix, When I watch a movie, like, with the family, and next week I want to watch a movie, I don't want to be burdened by finding a good movie. It's able to use the pattern and the movies that I like, and then predict, like, or suggest and say, like, hey, these are the things that you like. Imagine Google. If it didn't use AI to give us the results, and the results that are showing up may not be as effective. But now we can't live without it.
Right.
So in healthcare, the same thing. Like, if you're using AI in your mobile app, so for example, you have an appointment coming up, it knows where you are. Like, if you've given all the permissions, but it's your personal phone and you may have given those permissions. And if everything is done right, it means the data does not leave your phone and all of that, then all of these things can help you. For example, it can know how far you are from your appointment and say, like, hey, you're not going to be able to make it because, by the way, all the streets that lead up to you, the shortest route is going to take 1 hour to get to it.
Right.
Tells you right away. In fact, says in a different way to say, like, hey, your appointment could be rescheduled. Let me do it for you. It will make a phone call, or it will do the SMS, or whatever that is. It will do those things. Now the physician's appointment slot can be repurposed, right? And all of that. It can all happen and not in the last minute. It's a win-win situation. It saves money, both the sides. It's a very efficient system. So there are many, many, many examples of that.
Yeah. Right. And it's not lost on me that it doesn't involve people to do this, right? You don't have to call someone to reschedule. Right. It will be able to do that. And I hear of these tools that, you can use AI to find an appointment, a reservation availability at a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
I want to go to this restaurant, find out if something cancels so I can book my reservation. You could do that similarly with appointments, can't you?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And parameters could be put in. Like, physicians don't like to expose their availability. Yeah. That's fine. Let's put some parameters into it. If you say, like, hey, this physician, this is the other priorities and this is what they want. There is so many things that we can become efficient with, not focusing on the glitter and all of that glamour and say, I'm using AI for this, but really using that to say, like, if I'm a small clinic somewhere, how can I use that? And if you focus on that, then there is iterations. I mean, think about websites back in late 90s. We were talking about brochurewares. Then there was like the first one that said schedule an appointment online. Yeah. And then from there to now, like, there's so much people are doing now.
Yeah.
And, with the My Health records and all of that. It's an evolution. And we all can take it to that level.
Right. And as you mentioned earlier, right, you have to understand what you want to apply it to.
Yes.
It's not like an open-ended, it could do a lot of things.
It can.
But it's a tool. It's like a Swiss Army knife, right, so to speak.
Yes.
You could use it. You just want to pick the right use cases, ones that your customers are comfortable with.
Yes.
Ones that your organization's comfortable with, the providers maybe accessing or opening their schedules, that sort of thing.
Right.
But there's one piece of this puzzle that is not lost on me, and I want to get into this.
Okay.
Because we just went through over the last year this whole debacle around OCR and kind of using third-party tracking to understand user intent. And there was a big, slap down. Right. You cannot do that.
Correct.
So let's talk a little bit. Are you comfortable to talk a little bit about regulation, right?
Yeah.
I think regulation plays an important part here. It does. And we're talking now, I think it was about a week ago since we recorded this, where there was an executive order about AI. Are you familiar with it?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about like what the intent is here, because I think there is an intent here around regulation as well.
It is. There's some controversy also.
Yeah.
So I'll touch that a little bit first. If you go to ai.gov, which is a government-based site about talking about AI and responsible AI and all the regulations. But then if you look at the board members of who they are each represented by companies that are heavily invested in AI.
Right.
Right. So in a way, it's influencing the government, and they could influence it in the right direction or the wrong. And who knows? It's new. Everything is new. But it's a step in the right direction. It's telling out there at least to say like, hey, we are here for the citizens and we serve the citizens. And at least we have given a start. Because what could be a guardrail today may not apply or may have to be, remodified and then morphed into something else. So that's, it's an evolving thing, but it's a step in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I want to come back to the point, right? These big tech companies that have these large learning models, most of them closed, so you don't know what's behind them, right? But they're saying we need to be regulated, right? Now, nothing applies to the current state, but everything's for the future state, their next version, ChatGPT 5 or Bard 2.0 or whatever it might be, right? They're saying, please regulate us.
Yes.
I think in part the controversy there is because they're big enough to be able to help not only persuade the legislation, but to be able to retool their operations to do that.
Correct.
Yet all of these smaller, more the AI tools that a lot of us use, open source, that are being applied in healthcare a lot, right? Those are the ones that won't be able to keep up with the regulations, right? And and it's almost like kind of pressuring them out of the market as well.
It is, and then the concern, they're putting the focus on the right concern, meaning like, hey, if it's not regulated, this can just really accelerate and go to an extent where it will be too difficult to come back. But we're a capitalist economy, which means that everyone has the right to do as long as it's under the law.
Yeah.
And it's hard,
Yeah.
If we had stopped the computers from saying like, hey, this could, automate some nuclear things, and no one may have done it.
Right.
Then we know that it could be used in the right way and do certain things.
I think it's also a little bit too a backlash against social media and how that was unregulated at the beginning. And now suddenly everybody's like, we have no regulation, and it's impacting people's lives in a negative way.
Yes.
I read the 200-page executive order. I did. And, when I read it, I was looking at it and I was saying, well, these are really great, like, sort of milestones for what they want in the future. Nothing's defined. No details.
Nothing is,
It's more like guidelines. What we're going to do is be responsible, ethical, that sort of thing.
Right.
Okay. So now we know regulation is also a big part of this. I'm worried that OCR is going to also kind of issue something about how do we use AI without really understanding the technology.
Right.
Maybe this is a way to kind of get around to it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're working in a health system.
Yeah.
Everybody's knocking on your door. We want to use AI. Maybe your team is already using AI and not telling you.
Yeah.
Or maybe they are, and you created an environment where you can test these things out. When you work with organizations on this, how do you help them?
So what I tell them is like, encourage it, right? So don't say like you're against it, because they're going to use it somehow or the other without telling you or whatever that is. But the thing is, allowing an open communication within the team so that everyone can share, and they all can lay in terms of the importance of the regulations, HIPAA regulations and other regulations that we are bound by. Because this all fiasco about Facebook Pixel that happened, and then the legal team coming and saying like, take out everything out, right? It's just, we don't want to create that kind of a scenario again. And allowing the tools that are available there and innovate and say like, hey, here is an idea of what we can do with it, right? And at that point, discuss everything, positives, negatives, and all of that. Then discuss with the legal team and get their approval. Hey, this is what it is. Provide as much information as you can so that they can, positively be impacted and say like, and give you the allowance to say like, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
But there has to be user groups. There's so many things.
Yeah.
It depends on what they're trying to do.
Right.
I'm not against like, creating content, for example, but don't use it. Get ideas from it, but don't use it. People talk about like, hey, should we use this? Google, Microsoft, in their email, they've been doing this for years now.
Yeah.
Whereas you're typing, it's actually telling you. And how many of us do tabs?
Yes.
Even in
autofill the words.
iOS too, right?
Yeah.
So what are we talking about? It's suggesting. It's not saying like, hey.
Right.
I think it's going to create more efficient way, because otherwise email creation itself took so long to write one email for that. So these tools are helping. So, just there are many ways we can utilize.
And you could even take like a lengthy document and ask it using summarize what this is, or take this press release and create a social media post out of it.
Correct.
you always want to have that human side to it, the editorial aspect of it, but I think there's a lot of great positive applications, but what you're describing is governance, right?
That's correct.
Creating a governance model, and yes, legal compliance will be part of it.
Yes.
But you want to be providing the model to them instead of having them come back and say, don't do it. Right.
Yes.
Sujal, this is great conversation.
Always a pleasure, Chris.
This is fun, so much fun. Thank you so much for today.
I appreciate it.
And yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching live from HCIC 2023. We hope these insights have sparked new ideas and conversations. A special thanks to the industry experts featured on our show, and to Greystone, Bowstring Media, and Touchpoint Media for making these discussions available. For more episodes and exclusive content, please visit Greystone.Net, Touchpoint.Health, or subscribe through your favorite podcast listening platform. If you want to be part of more conversations like this one, please make sure to attend the Healthcare Internet Conference in Austin, Texas. You can find more details at hcic.net.